does Robert sound on your end, Austin? Something it's good?
Yep, sounds good.
All right, ready?
Alrighty, sounds good. So
4, 3, 2, 1, director.
welcome back to the TowerCast podcast, the towering podcast for the towering filmmakers of the world. We want to thank everybody for listening in. If you're a filmmaker or you just simply love cinema and are watching, thank you for joining us on all major podcasting platforms as well as YouTube and Facebook. A quick reminder to make sure and check out our Instagram, the TowerCast Network. That's where we'll be posting all the updates for this podcast and the Watchtower podcast. We have a very, very exciting episode with an amazing guest today. Before I introduce our amazing guest today, I want to, as per usual, introduce the people in the room. We have Mr. Michael DeLao.
Hello again, everybody.
We have Mr. Austin Young, making sure we're sounding good over there.
Hey, how's it going?
And, you know, I wanted to introduce Castro last in terms of the panel because I have a little story. But we have Mr. John Eric Castro giving us that acting perspective.
How you guys doing, film people out there?
So before I introduce our guest, I just want to give it, I got to give credit where credit is due, right? As you all know, we're doing this podcast virtually as everything right now. And I thought it'd be a cool little film story because I have a little setup, you know, my home office here or whatnot. And, you know, I have a shelf with some of my favorite movies and some signed Funko Pops and stuff like that. And I have my Super 8 camera on my shelf. And well, something happened where my shelf shifted, some movies shifted, and my Super 8 camera, I mean, these things are massive. If you've never held a Super 8, they're pretty massive. They're pretty sturdy. Decided to drop and fall right on my computer monitor.
No.
And it broke completely. And a big old crack in the middle of the screen. And so I kind of was just using a single monitor and, you know, it was a little difficult navigating. I was telling Castro the story. He's like, hey, man, I got an extra one I'm not using. You want me to go drop it off? I got you. And I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, yeah, I got you. I got an extra one. So now I'm rocking this big 32-inch compared to my 27-inch monitor, and he hooked that all up. So I got to give Castro credit for doing that.
You're
I appreciate
welcome.
it.
You're welcome.
Cool. Nice. So today we got a very special guest. We're going to dive into an area of filmmaking that we haven't had a deeper perspective on, and it's so important. It's one of the most important things when it comes to filmmaking. Our guest has worked on films such as Terminator 2, Ford versus Ferrari, 3 Billboards of Ebbing, Missouri. I mean, most recently, The High Note, Neighbors, 7 Psychopaths, just to name a few. But he's worked on one of my favorite films of all time, and it's actually how we connected. If you're watching this on YouTube, he worked on La La Land. La La Land, this is my collectible steel book that I just love this picture so much. It's literally one of my favorite films. He got to work on that. We're going to get some perspective from the amazing location manager of all of these films, Robert Foulkes.
Yay. Robert, thank you for coming on.
You're welcome. Thank you. This is fun. It is important to get across the location manager perspective. We're often maybe the first person hired onto a movie once they decide to do it.
Sure, absolutely. That we need to get that perspective because it's I mean, we may have caught it from a film, but everybody says location, location, location. That's the key, and in film too. So first of all, Robert, how you holding up during this pandemic? Are you kind of just working in between, or?
No, I mean, for a long time we were on lockdown and there wasn't any production, and slowly they started doing things like commercials and things. I don't do commercials, but they started to do smaller things and opening up, and I scouted a few commercials and things like that. But then suddenly the features started coming back. The COVID protocols started to come into view, and what were all the studios going to decide to do about this? Was it going to be a uniform sense to the COVID rules? Everyone was a little like, what are these 20-page documents and these pods and bubbles and all these different things? And yeah, eventually I got a movie that wanted to shoot during COVID, and it actually relocated because it got shut down in another part of the country back in March. I was on it. March 13th was sort of the D-Day for everybody remembers kind of where they were on March 13th. I mean, in our world, that was like, where were you on the day that you found out? Well, actually the 12th, we found out our show was shutting down. Working on a show. And March 13th, the next day, it was pouring rain in LA, and I was picking up the cones in front of a location we weren't going to shoot anymore. And I'll always think about that day, you know. And then nothing. It was just, you know, like everybody else, we were on lockdown for a long time.
It's a waiting game.
But Yeah, waiting game, but got through an entire production during COVID, which was the David O. Russell movie that I just finished last week.
Absolutely.
And it was quite an experience, with COVID teams and supervisors hovering and making sure you were doing the right thing and wearing the masks and spraying everything down.
Did that also kind of play into picking, I guess, like for the locations? Because of course it would be choosing the script. But now, did you have that extra thought of like ventilation and making sure?
Oh my gosh, definitely. We had to. You really didn't want to pick something and later have the COVID supervisor say, you should have picked the other place because we don't think you can have this many people in here for this amount of time. You have to think ahead of time for the scheduling. You may have to, every hour, everybody has to clear out the room for a while, let it air out, place air scrubbers everywhere, filtering the air. And do you want to do a concert scene where that was the one that I got shut down in March, was going to do scenes in nightclubs with packed crowds in a nightclub. And they were contemplating the idea of coming back in June, July, I think it was. And they started talking about, well, we could tile in with VFX, the crowd, and that's not the way that the show wants to look, and they don't want to go through that. And that ended up not coming back yet. It still might, but so many factors for COVID, and just much more time in the day to plan and test everyone when they walk in the door. And it's quite a to-do. I'm glad I went through it, and now I'm about to go through another one.
Oh, I can imagine. Well, I think it's important for us to think of a simpler time, right? At least until we get back to normal. So if we back up a little bit here, we always love to ask our guests. We at Tower Productions love to, say that everybody on our set's a filmmaker, from grips to PAs to actors. Everybody is a filmmaker, not just a writer, not just a director, and that most certainly includes the location department. So how did your journey as a storyteller come to fruition? How did that start?
Wow. Okay. How we could take up the whole hour with that, but I won't.
We're ready.
I'll try to hit the greatest hits with that.
I think I'm cozy. I'm comfy.
I've got my iced coffee.
There we go.
If I'm not mistaken, you started with acting, probably.
I did. Yeah. I'll just quickly go through. Yeah, my dad was a stage manager, assistant director at Universal Television. He did Kojaks and Columbos and all that. My brother, sister, and I, the four redheads, we were discovered and said, well, let's get these kids into acting. So we all got into acting. We all did acting to varying degrees. My most famous thing, if you want to call it that, that's available on YouTube. You can see me on the Bob Newhart Show pilot.
Wow, Bob Newhart.
That's the one thing you can kind of still see. But I did a bunch of stuff between the ages of 5 and 13. Once you get braces, you kind of get out of acting, because unless you're already a regular in a show, they're not going to cast you.
Yeah, they're just going to.
And you kind of also have to think, I want to be an actor at that point. And I didn't. But my sister was in a Brady Bunch. My brother was in Bewitched. We did things, and eventually, then I knew I was going to do something in the business. I eventually worked at a location service. I can just leapfrog to location services. I worked at a location service in Santa Barbara, which was a company that provides locations. If you want to film a movie up in Santa Barbara, you can call them ahead of time, and they can help you figure out where to film ahead of time. And if you're not familiar with Santa Barbara, it's 2 hours north of LA, and you may not already know what's up there to film. So we would go out and show people maybe commercials and still shoots, to be honest. But there was a feature that shot up there. I got a PA job on that feature that shot up there. Knew I wanted to stick with locations when I moved back to LA, and became a location assistant. My stepbrother helped me get on my first gig. He was a producer, and nepotism that got me started. But I obviously did a good job, because that location manager hired me on his next thing. So that made me feel good. So then I was off and running as a location assistant in LA. And the first big thing I worked on was Terminator 2. I mean, it makes it sound when people say that and introducing me like I was far from the main guy.
Well, no, but you still worked on this production,
I was a lowly assistant, but I was there. I wasn't even on the entire production, and I was still on it for like 6 months. I mean, it was such a long. It was the most expensive movie ever made at the time, and definitely some memories with that. And I ended up actually with the same location team I did a month and a half on True Lies a few years later. So I had 2 James Cameron experiences. But yeah, moved up from being an assistant location manager. Then you move up to being a key assistant location manager, and then location manager. And
so I
still really enjoy it. So I still do it after all these frickin' years.
Absolutely. I mean, so as a location assistant, for instance, if in T2, right, if this was kind of your big break to a certain degree, at least with features, what does a location assistant do? Tell us what that journey kind of starts off as.
Yeah. So, in that particular movie, there were so many different locations that they needed to add more people. That's how I kind of got on it. I wasn't there from the very beginning of the scouting. I was actually, when I started it, they were already getting ready to shoot, or had already started shooting a little bit. They basically divided it up into people that were helping solve certain locations that are complicated. Like I literally, for a month of the 6 months was just dealing with the Terminal Island Freeway down in San Pedro, which was the finale car chase with the helicopter. I was standing there off to the side when the helicopter went underneath the overpass, hoping it didn't hit my fellow assistant and I. Every time I watch the movie, I see that shot and I think of myself being over to the right and the helicopter flies on. But yeah, so just the planning of that, the closing of, I don't even know how many off-ramps, closing off all those off-ramps, putting the CHPs in place, all the different businesses along the way that had to leave their lights on or don't leave your lights on. Right. We spent an entire evening just watching a fake helicopter frame, the front end of it, on a crane being shoved into the back of the gardening truck. I mean, you've all probably seen Terminator 2, but that was literally just one evening. Like it's like wow. 8 seconds of the movie was us just watching that thing crash into that. So but then there were other chunks of time. Then I was getting all the neighbors' signatures. That's what they'll use assistants for too, kind of the lower level. Like I'll go out and meet all the neighbors around the intersection of Plummer and Havenhurst where the T-1000 takes the truck and crashes into the LA River and keeps going. You think they're finally going to get away in the LA River, and the frickin' truck crashes through and still chases the river for another 10 minutes. But that intersection, we had to completely close that intersection. Every neighbor in that intersection had to agree to having the intersection be closed for a rehearsal and a shooting. And so, I'm an assistant location manager spending a few days just talking to all those people and getting them to sign a form. Lots of little parking. Where are you going to park the restrooms? I mean, my glamour job is parking restrooms and also hobnobbing with a director. It's like those are the two things I do.
I think it's important to kind of just show and highlight in what you're saying that for locations, it's not as easy as let's find this really pretty spot to film in, and then that's it. It's all the logistics.
My job is done. Yeah,
everybody's.
Oh my gosh. And it's good to have a couple different choices of things too. There's plenty of cases where you say, hey, look, I haven't met all these people here yet. Don't say this has to be the one where you guys want to film it. If we have time, let me find a backup one. I may end up meeting all these people and oh my God, if you want to jump to La La Land, the Somewhere in a Crowd night for 2 nights. Neighbors listening to Somewhere in a Crowd. I mean, they could memorize the song. They could memorize the song a year before the movie came out. They probably recorded it in their backyard and were dancing to it a year before the movie came out.
Wow. I mean, it's important to kind of present that side of things. Now, are you working directly as a location assistant and gearing up to be a location manager? Are you working directly with the directors of the film? Are you presenting them the options? Are you presenting the producers?
It varies. It varies. I mean, with someone like David O. Russell, you go through the production designer more, and he's a writer director too. He's so busy writing and working with the actors that he's not as hands-on with my department, which is fine. I mean, they have different, but something like a great experience was working on the movie Destroyer with Nicole Kidman, an underrated thriller that people should see. I think her performance, and it really shows. We were really proud of a lot of the LA locations. Our director was kind of trying to find places that didn't get shot all the time. Right. But I, driving around with Karin Kusama on that. It was me and her driving around looking for the locations, Wow. And Martin McDonough driving around North Carolina looking for 3 billboards. Those are the great experiences. Wow. He pops his favorite music on to get in the mood of the movie, and we're just driving around looking at stuff. But not every movie gets to be that experience, and that's fine too. Sometimes it's more with the designer, not the director.
Oh, okay. So you definitely have a good relationship with the production designers,
and they're really my boss in a way. If you want to say who's your boss. Okay. Because not necessarily when you start shooting, the line producer is really the person you're answering to with budgets and why did you order 5 restrooms and we could have just had 2, stuff like that. But during the scouting, definitely your designer is the one that you got to keep happy and show the right photos to and all that.
Sure.
Even once they kind of start in the actual filming and production of the movie, essentially, are you still kind of keeping on toes to make sure if a location falls through and all that, there are backups and all that? Like, does your job really ever kind of like pause?
No. I mean, the goal is, you guys probably even still do you have things called tech scouts in your short films?
Oh, yes. Yeah.
I mean, you still want to go and like run through everything ahead of time with everybody. So the day you're shooting it, you're not going to have any. The goal is to like have everybody think of everything you can think of before you start shooting. So my goal every movie is what are the key locations to look at first, and usually everyone's in agreement on the key ones to go figure out first. That could be because it might be the hardest location in the movie, or it might be because it's the hardest one to lock down, or everyone's the most curious because it's in the movie the most. There's a different reason why you might have the first. But then the goal is to have everything for the movie by the time you tech scout. I mean, it's expensive to get everybody together on a weekend once you're shooting, to get everybody. We never did go look at that thing. I mean, I've had movies where they didn't figure out the last third of the movie, and you're like, you guys know what you're in for. You're in for a bunch of 6 days on crew members on a Saturday going to look at stuff. Why don't you guys just put more pressure on finding everything now before we start shooting? And you'll also have a much more accurate budget that way too.
So I have to ask you, in terms of kind of gearing up to some of the bigger things you've done, but you started out a lot, or intermittently, you have these big shows with multiple locations. And I kind of want to talk about that before we get into the bigger pictures. But you did things like The West Wing and Nip Tuck that have these beautiful locations and various seasons. Kind of, they open up the world a little bit. So can you talk a little bit about working on shows opposed to kind of the movies you intermittently did?
Yeah, I still, that was the first time I worked with Ryan Murphy before he became the mega. I have 10 shows at once.
Absolutely.
Now he has his hands in like 8-10 different things at one time. But yeah, I ended up doing the first 3 seasons of Nip Tuck, I think. And then I went off to do a movie, and my assistant on that moved up because he was familiar with the show. That's a good example of an interesting way to transition from a key to, everyone says, hey, just pick he's got the days in the union. Pick him. He already knows everybody. He knows what we like about the show, and he did the 4th season, and then became a location manager. That was good. But yeah, Nip Tuck was interesting. They shoot most of it on stage at Paramount, and then we would go out and find locations that felt Miami, and so there were episodes sometimes where you wouldn't go out more than a couple different locations an episode. I like doing features. I like getting a full script. That's the movie. There it is. That's the thing you're trying to make. You go out, you find it, you shoot it, and you're done. TV is a lot of this back and forth. Oh, we don't quite have they're still working on this one scene, and maybe we're going to shoot that. I don't know. Go scout it. Oh, that thing you wasted a week on, we're not even going to shoot it anymore. Like, what? Give me a movie that knows what it is. They know what they got, and let me go figure it out.
Sure. How about your experience like on The West Wing? Is that something that was, we have an amazing cast, and the great Aaron Sorkin is up for an Oscar for his work on the newest film, right? But how about The West Wing? That was
me taking over for one of my mentors, location manager, who's now a line producer. He ended up being my line producer on Ford Ferrari. But he was a location manager at the time. He was my guy that I would work on tons of movies with him as a key assistant. And he left West Wing, and that's another one where I took over. I had my days to be a manager on West Wing. So I actually just did the second half of that first season. I didn't do any other seasons on it. We didn't even go out all that much. And I honestly don't remember much about the West. It was like I took over from him. I went out on location a few times. My greatest experience I'll always remember, we rented a Korean airline jet for Air Force One because it already had the colors. It's an interesting thing.
Wow.
You notice the Korean Air has similar colors to Air Force One. This was back before VFX was like, just paint it out. It's cheap. Take out the palm tree. We don't
fix it in post.
Fix it in post. So Korean Air, we're like, we got to have a Korean Air jet. And I remember Martin Sheen standing on the Korean Air meeting the executives from Korean Air, and how charming and pleasant he was to them. And that makes my job easier when you're standing there on a tarmac at LAX, hoping it all goes well.
Yeah.
That your star is chatting with them, and that's just icing on the cake when you're trying to make things go smoothly. That's my big memory from West Wing. Really.
Right. Well, you say you love kind of more of the feature aspect, and you did some pretty amazing. I mean, I kind of want to start with like Brother Solomon, which a lot people maybe didn't see. It was a great comedy that a lot of.
I had fun with. I thought Bob Odenkirk, pre-Breaking Bad, Bob Odenkirk. He was a kick. I mean, yeah, he was fun to be with on Scouts and stuff. That was a fun little movie. Yeah, I mean that's one that I was. Sometimes you're not on an entire movie too. Sometimes it's going to IMDb is going to make it look like I was on from the very first person to the very last person. There are people that try to make it look like, oh, I worked on a movie. It's like, no, you didn't. You were on there a week. Okay.
Right. No, I don't think so, because you contributed to what this picture became.
No, but it's a little craw that it's like if it's like I've taken things off where I'm like, look, I was brought on to help out for a week or two on a movie. I'm not going to try to make it sound like, and I get it early on in someone's career if they want to like throw things on there and hey, I worked. I don't know how I got off on that subject, but that was an example of one that was fun from the beginning to the end. That movie.
Okay. Sorry. Go ahead, Preston.
Sorry, I gotta ask. I'm a big fan of It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. And I see that.
Oh my God, dude! That's one. I only helped out on
one of those examples on the pilot,
and I think I made sure that I only said one episode on IMDb. Does it say that?
It only says one.
It just says the pilot.
It says one. Thank you. See, that's what I'm saying. I didn't want to make it look. Hey, I did all the. I did all 25 seasons. Of,
but the pilot's important. I mean,
it was. I remember the bar. The bar. Actually, honestly, I didn't. There's so much to watch. I didn't even watch that show. I have a friend who swears by it, and he probably watched every freaking episode. But I'm sure it's great. But the bar ended up being a big thing in the show, right? They hang out.
Yeah. It's all set there. Yeah.
That was in Pasadena, and they end up creating it on. But that's interesting because then they create it on stage for the show, knowing that the show's going to go, and they make it look like the one that's on Colorado Colorado Boulevard in Pasadena. Cool. So people don't even know. They're probably walking by. They might be fans of the show. They don't even know that that's what the bar was based off. The bar you just walked by.
Oh, okay. We recently watched or rewatched, I should say. It's a movie we love to watch all the time. Is the Invention of Lying. And
oh my God. Yes,
we though that film stands out, and I'm trying to pinpoint certain films from your list here that pinpoint the locations that stand out, and I think The Invention of Lying is one of them. Yeah,
that was additional photography on that movie. Did I write that on IMDb? I was trying to
I'm not sure here. Let's see. Location manager, additional photography.
Thank
sure.
you.
Yeah.
See, look how honest I am. I'm so honest. That was additional photography. Ricky Gervais needed to do 3 additional scenes. We shot at Huntington Gardens with Jennifer Garner on a park bench.
Okay. Oh yeah.
We shot in her house with her mom. One other, with 3 locations. They were all there in Pasadena. They were essential to the movie. I loved the movie. I thought it was great when
absolutely.
But those were the 3 scenes I worked on there. Yeah.
Wow. I mean, you start kind of gearing up and doing some bigger pictures, but I feel like I want to jump ahead a little bit and talk about some of the films that really I feel like solidified you as a location manager. And you could correct me if I'm wrong here, but I want to start with Savages, Oliver Stone's Savages.
Yes.
Such a terrific picture. Again, lots of standout locations, and you got to work with one of the greats in terms of storytelling and directing, right?
Yes. That I was on from the beginning, but I did not do the whole movie.
Okay.
I've left 3 movies, and I left 3 movies in my career. I left a movie to do La La Land. I don't know. I don't know if I should.
Great choice. I don't know
if I should tell the story. Well, I can tell it. Whatever. It's big. Yeah.
If you don't like it, we'll cut it.
I feel bad. Wait, I'm skipping over Savages for a minute, but I did this movie Lowriders.
Yes.
Which had high hopes for that movie. I thought the subject matter was great. It was going to be the iconic, definitive movie about that world. It's very LA.
Right.
Great locations, showing a world in LA that hadn't been explored. It was like Brian Grazer's pet project and everything, and Blumhouse was behind it. And the director was fantastic. Thought he was wonderful. I liked his first movie.
I remember the marketing was absolutely through the roof for this film. Yeah.
And it just did not live up to what everyone had wanted. It should be an iconic LA movie about that world. I mean, people should still see it. It's still
absolutely.
I loved working with the director. I thought it was a challenge on the budget, but then they were getting ready to shoot. And I got the call that they finally cast Ryan Gosling and
Emma Stone.
Thank you. I was going to say Emma Watson. Emma Stone, because it was going to be Emma Watson.
It was, but she took Beauty and the Beast. Yeah.
I was on vacation in Washington, D.C. with my wife when I got the call that Miles Teller and Emma Watson were not going to do the movie. That was early. So there were these different calls that I got throughout. Because I was the very first scout on La La Land. We figured out the movie. Those actors decided not to do it. The movie got shut down.
Right.
I go on, do other things. You just whatever. You don't know when something's coming back. But I got the call about La La Land moving forward with Gosling and Emma Stone, and I thought, oh, they're going to be fantastic for the movie. They obviously proved their chemistry in Crazy Stupid Love. And Gosling's a better choice, and Emma Stone's a better choice. No offense to Miles Teller and Whiplash, but
absolutely.
But so I got and I was like, and the designer, and there was a friend of mine who ended up winning the Academy Award for La La Land. I said, I got to leave this movie. And and it's hard to explain how important La La Land is going to be.
Yes.
Not to shoot something else to somebody, but they kind of got it. I said, I figured out this whole movie in advance, like months earlier.
Right.
And you really want me to jump on and do it. And I found a location manager. I mean, that's where you got to take the time, figure out a manager. Yeah. Don't leave them hanging.
No, of course.
Give them really good notes about everything you're about to start shooting. Go there with them. And the director was totally supportive. He was not, whatever. He wasn't a dick about it. Can I say dick?
Right. Yeah, you could. Yeah, no worries.
He was not a dick about it. He got it. He said, wow, that sounds amazing, that project. And so I did not do the shooting of Lowriders. I found all the locations, but I did not do the shooting of Lowriders.
Gotcha.
Or La La Land. But wait, how did I get off?
I promise you, we're going to spend. No worries.
This is how it works.
No worries. That's fine. I mean, we're going to spend a significant amount of time on La La Land. I promise you. Trust me. We'll get there.
I keep
but no worries. But I feel like between Savages and then we get into.
Okay, yeah, Savages was one of those movies that it was interesting. We figured out the whole. Everything that didn't take place in Laguna Beach shooting wise. I mean, the movie took place in Laguna, but we shot in Malibu. We shot in everything that was physically going to get shot in Laguna Beach, which they were still kind of up in there. Like, how much are we actually going to shoot down there? Like, how much are we going to travel and put everyone up? Can we figure out things that look like Laguna? Then there's the whole desert finale, the desert. Blowing up the truck and big shootout at the end. That stuff kind of kept getting like, let's figure out all the LA stuff first.
Right.
I guess I can say this stuff. I had ideas for all the different things to do in Laguna. Hey, with one quick scout down there, I figured out where you would shoot the big finale shootout, which they ended up picking. But we never tech scouted that stuff. We never went to those places. And we ended up starting shooting, did all the other things. And then another manager, because I left to do what else? What did I leave to do? I can't remember now.
Was it? It might have been Seven Psychopaths.
I left to do Marley and Me, which ended up also shutting down and didn't get shot with the director or whatever. It's a whole other thing. But I did all of Savages except in terms of shooting. I did all of Savages except the shots you actually see in Laguna Beach, which are on volleyball, and you can actually tell.
Right.
Our house was in Malibu, though. The big part of the scouting was figure out a house that didn't have out of the zone down in 2 hours, not 2 hours, but whatever, down to Laguna, hour and a half, but find it in Malibu. So we found Ben and Sean's house was in Malibu and had the great cliffs and all that. And they were that was
a fantastic location.
Believable. Yeah. It was a tough one because it had to look hip and slick, but also be on a cliff, and you had to own it for a long. Malibu has restrictions. With neighbors having to be on board, it's much more strict than just, hey, let's go shoot at that house. But all that stuff, and then I wasn't there for the whole big shootout. Now, Salma Hayek's house has been shot many, many times. Her Palm Springs house. Well, she had two. She had the big. She had the Spanish-looking ranch,
right?
and which was supposed to be in Mexico, right? I think in the movie.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. That's out in the valley. That's this amazing place that gets shot quite a bit.
Wow.
It's great. It's got horses and beautiful rooms and everything. It's actually a newer property, but you would buy that it was built, 100 years ago. It's a
Spanish
great location. Totally. You just think because it was supposed to look like, it's an old hacienda that's been there forever. That thing. But then her Palm Springs one is a house that gets shot all the time. It was in Dreamgirls. Frank Sinatra owned it.
Oh yeah.
It's that slick, modern looking one,
right?
Where they're eating out on the patio with Blake Lively and
yes.
Oh my God, that chandelier fell, and I had to pay for this chandelier that fell.
No way.
It's all coming back to me. You guys are making me up horror stories too.
They're important.
Yeah,
even the horror stories.
But no, Savages was cool to work on just because it was big, and there were a few Tech Scout lunches with Oliver, and he was a character. I'd have to water on the table. That kind of
yeah, he sounds like I've been hearing a lot more stories about working with him, and he sounds like. I heard a story about some people at Platoon playing a prank on him, and he stopped production until they apologized. I've heard some stories about him,
and you forgive it when they're great, whatever.
Yeah,
right.
And he's whatever, and it's nothing that hit me personally or anything like that. It was just Just these guys they're old school and they can be prickly and whatever. It's fine.
Right.
I mean, that was another one where I'm more closely working with a designer who wanted to make sure he was keeping Oliver happy.
Of course.
So, but
I have to ask you in terms of the location side. We hear this a lot in filmmaking, and even when we're admiring some of the bigger storytellers than us, and we try to see what they're up to. When it comes to budgets, I think it's important to ask what we're talking about Savages, because you hear a lot of people say like, oh, well, they just cut our budget in half. We're going to have to shoot Malibu for Columbia. We're going to have to shoot this for that. What's that like in your area,
Interesting. Like, you mean during the movie, they changed their mind and they don't have enough. I'm
sure you've encountered those types of situations.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of one. Where you go toward look, there are scenes that get cut. La La Land had scenes that cut. It's not my place to say what they were.
Right.
Damien ever wants to put out a special edition.
If we can get Damien on this show, we'll be happy too. We'll talk to him.
Look, I'd be the first in line to buy it, to see extended scenes and deleted scenes.
Tell me about it.
It's up to him to figure out. I don't even think it's my place to say like what they were and where we were going to shoot. There was some interesting stuff that got scouted, and some got shot, some didn't, because that was one where when you read the script, you're like, there was talk. I remember getting the songs early on too, which was kind of fun. Getting to hear, like, because the script, it just says, they dance and it's cool.
Did you get the
in the script? It lasts for like a second.
Right.
It's going to be like a 5-page.
Of course,
but it's just like one. They're gonna.
I just wrote my first musical feature, and it's exactly that. You have to kind of calculate more or less of the timing.
Well, if you're trying to get financing for it, you should probably not do it like with just shorthand that he did, because he already knew. It's like I did Whiplash. They're not. They and that was a good point with Damien. You read that and you're like, we're going to dance on the freeway. It's 1/8 of a page. It's like, no, it's not going to be 1/8 of a page. 3 minutes.
It's not 1/8 of a page.
And I think he knows he has his vision. And I always say this to people. It's like, well, God, it's like if Whiplash hadn't come out beforehand, and I didn't know how amazing it was and what he pulled off, and also Guy and Madeline on the park bench.
Yes.
Once I knew I was going to work with him, I watched that too, and all that. And I was like, he knows what he's doing. He knows. Even
that was ambitious for location as well.
Completely. No, that's a really great progression for him from that to that. And you have the confidence that he's gonna know how to pull it off. But I think early on there were talk of like, we're not going to get to do all of these songs, and you were just waiting to kind of hear like, well, which one do you think we're going to not shoot? But until they make that decision, you're just kind of thinking, okay, these are all going to be in the movie. And
when you got the songs ahead of time, did you get the Justin Hurwitz demos, or you already got some with the actors in place?
It was on this file that had, I believe it was just, no, they were singing, but it was just, back then it was whoever it was. Yeah, it was probably him and his piano with some singers singing to him.
Gotcha.
Which I think they were anxious to just show. I think it was for David and Sandy to listen to, and I got to listen to them too. That was one movie too where I got to watch the dailies every night on my computer.
Oh man!
And I don't. Well, look, sometimes they say, "Yeah, come by studio." Well, when it wasn't when dailies weren't sent over computer with all the coding that like if you show this one you must die. But like you get offers even as the location manager, hey, come by the studio and you can watch it daily at night. I'm sleeping, worrying about the next day. But that was one where I got access to the code and it was fun to just sit and watch, because a lot of times I'm not able to stand there and watch them shoot everything. I'm not necessarily, I'm not necessarily on every set too. I might be worrying about what's coming up the next day. And that was so fun watching all the different takes. And, anyway,
That's amazing. No, I want to talk a little bit about the kind of your Martin McDonagh kind of era. So you get 7 Psychopaths, and you also do 3 Billboards with him. It seems like you're getting on.
That was a great. I mean, I'm not a schmoozer. That's to my fault, I think, over my career. I don't. I don't like hang out with directors and like. But somehow.
It's refreshing, by the way, to not get that. So please, just tell us your story.
I'm kind of amazed all the things I've done without being someone like that. But no, there are certain, like I expected after 7 Psychopaths to work with him again if he ever did a movie. And when I heard he was going to do one in the United States, I didn't know if it was LA. I had a feeling like he would want me to do it, and it was cool that he did. I don't consider him a friend. That sounds easy, but like if I went to Ireland, I would hang out with Martin and he would show me around Ireland. And hang out.
Considered a
That's
friend.
pretty, like it's cool to have a few of those. I don't have that with everyone. That is for sure.
No, of course.
You can go through an entire movie and you've talked to the director 5 times, but Martin and I definitely hit it off and had fun together. Yeah.
So just something I'm noticing, working as a location manager, would you say that that's a very, I almost want to say like fluid job, that it seems like you're jumping into films, but then if you need to jump out of a film, there's people that are rising up and it's constantly like flowing around, that you're behind the scenes, I guess, enough where if things need to be shifted around, you're able to help out here. If you need to cover for somebody else, you can go like how's that look like? And it's interesting how I can actually, if I have a good team, and usually I try to have the same people and a good team of people who you organize priorities. I can kind of choose or choose not to be kind of on a set and be hovering, and that's the goal too. It's like you can feel confident. So as glamorous as my job sounds, there could be times where I was not even on a set that day. I could probably rearrange my day to choose to be, but I'm somebody that always thinks, I get bored on a movie set, unless it's something like a helicopter going under a freeway. Or actually, or watching a really great piece of dialogue acted. That's really great. Or watch someone pull off a really cool shot. I was there when Martin, we did, I want to say 7 takes, but it could have been like 5, of Sam Rockwell walking out of the police station, crossing the street.
The Oneer. The Oneer and 3 Billboards. Oh, yes.
The billboard. That was one of the, I'm jumping around again.
Let's go.
Oh, that's okay.
I feel like I'm in a Twilight Zone of my career. I'm falling down here. That's an example of where you kind of want to rearrange your day to make sure you're there.
To be there. Is there chatter with the department heads like, oh, hey, this is the day where we're shooting this scene, so we might need all hands on deck, or you just want to come check out the set for this day or whatever?
Well, some people can't. It's one assistant who always wants the really cool locations. I want the racetrack. I want to do the race. I'm like, well, you're already doing the one the next day. I can't have you do 2 in a row. Oh yeah,
sorry.
He was like that on Ford Ferrari. It's pretty funny. He got all the cool racing stuff.
Oh man.
But so no, people do fight. But but that's an example of, look, that was one of the reasons. That was one of the directives on 3 Billboards was from Martin, is get a town, Main Street, where he could do a scene like that, where I could burn down a police station across the street from where he could not walk around the corner to a stairwell. He wanted to be able to walk straight across the street all in one shot, walk up the stairs, go into an office that looked believable as an advertising firm.
It almost felt like it was made, right? It almost felt like a soundstage.
It's one of the reasons why we picked that town. You know,
Sure.
I mean, it really was. And I had to make sure, and this is class, and Neighbors was like this too. I suddenly flashed on, you have two
With Neighbors.
locations where you love it because of these two different places owned by two different people.
Right.
I need both of them to be excited and want to do this. I was with that with Neighbors. The houses, I needed the frat house and I needed Seth Rogen's house. I needed both of these people to be into this because they're going to have a lot of filming and they're right next door to each other.
But okay, so is that part of the budget? Is that part of the budget you have to consider? Do you have to get these owners to agree to it?
Oh my gosh. Oh yes. Yeah. I mean, sometimes it's hard to predict what money you put in. I mean, they have to be flexible. I mean, I can't guess how much it's going to cost me to turn that into a police station. Burn it down, and how many prep days is it? I had to clear out 2 floors. It was an antique store. It was filled with antiques.
Wow. It look like an antique store.
We had to completely surround the inside with non-flammable material that then you can then burn the actual inside and not burn the building down.
Right.
Wow.
And clear everything out, and then make the other one look like the advertisement and throw them out the window. You know.
Right.
So and then once you get a little closer to meeting everybody and their attitude about it, you start to feel good. And then I still had to convince the town to let us shoot there.
Now, how about the legendary rural where the 3 billboards actually are? How do you find a location like that, and how does shooting there?
That's an interesting case of I guess it's pretty obvious, but you read that script and you go, what are the main things you want to find first? Well, in that case, it was what state are we going to film in? Martin definitely wanted to call it North Carolina, 3 billboards out of Ebbing, Missouri. Okay, yeah, we were filmed it. I almost forgot. We said, would you be willing to change it to Ebbing, Georgia? If we find it in Georgia, and you can, he's like, I want to call it Missouri, Ebbing, Missouri. Because we knew we were going to scout other places that have tax incentives like Georgia. I scouted Georgia. We went to New Mexico even for the hell of it. It didn't it didn't look like Missouri, but just for that. Ohio, Tennessee, 5 different states. And then eventually you narrow it down to what state. And then you narrow it down to here. If you want why scouting, how scouting is different from the days of Terminator 2. The wonders of Google. Okay, here I am. I know I'm going to go to North Carolina. I'm going to drive all over North Carolina and hopefully not take 2 years to find this frickin' town
location
and this road. Google Earth, take your little guy, hover it over a town. You can even tell on Google what looks like a main street that's older. Because you see it. You see the shapes of the buildings look like little rectangles that are all in a main, sometimes even call it Main Street.
Right.
So you drop your little yellow Google guy down there and you go like this.
Yeah.
And if you see too many Starbucks and too many, and you don't see anything that looks, if you don't
already
see anything,
know.
You don't gone to the next one. Boom. Oh, wait, Silva, North Carolina was one of the 12 that looked like it had something that you could look like a police station. And there's a building across the street that has a second floor. Oh my God, it has a stairwell that goes up. So then you gather 12 different places in North Carolina, all over North Carolina that fit that. Because you don't want to get Martin in a plane in a car until you have at least like 12 to go look at.
You narrow it down,
So we made reservations in like 4 different pit stops. Went to 12 different places. Silva was like one of the 4th or 5th, but we thought it was great, but we still like, okay, let's go to the other ones just in case. So we're driving, we go to the other one. And you come home from that scout going, great, we narrowed it down. We want to shoot in Silva, North Carolina. Well, I haven't talked to anyone in the town. Maybe they don't want their town taken over by a movie that's about killing by police officers killing African Americans.
Some heavy subject matter,
Exactly.
Sure.
So we had to convince them all, and we all had a big town meeting, and they all got on board.
Well, rest assured that it certainly paid off, and I'm glad that Martin stuck to that vision because I feel like it's one of those films that couldn't have taken place in any other location. This was just perfect for the scenery. It was perfect for the scenes and the characters to be able to deliver their dialogue with almost a theater-esque backdrop to it. Like I said, it feels like a backlot set that was built. I mean, it just felt perfect.
And it's icing on the cake when you find, Sam Rockwell's house was right up on that hill. When you look down and you see the town, It's right. It's right there. She was on the council too, the town council. She was one of the 5 people who had to say yes, and it was her house. So she was great. She moved out. They had kids and everything. And that's it. You see the church steeple. You see that's icing on the cake. You didn't have to make a lot of moves. The dentist's office was right around the corner. So now you're grounded in Silva. Hey, we don't have the billboards yet. Where are the billboards? Martin has a certain vision for this. You got to round a corner in a station wagon and you see 3 of them. You got to have them perfectly spaced out. You don't want to see a bunch of other houses around it because then people would come out of the house and go, the billboards are on fire. The billboards are. No, you want it to look like it's in the middle of nowhere. It's also got to look believable that there used to be a main road that now got bypassed into a freeway or wherever and now we know we're in Silva. Wouldn't it be great if we don't have to make a move to a whole other part of North Carolina for this?
Right.
So, the beauty of Silva too, we're near Asheville. Asheville gets to be where our production office is. Everyone gets to go to nice restaurants and live in nice places while they make this movie. Icing on the cakes. Martin gets to have his favorite sushi place. We should have put a plaque on the wall with Martin McDonough ate dinner here 12 times. And we didn't have to go. We weren't sitting in some town where it was hard to make the movie. We're in Asheville and it takes 40 minutes to get to Silva. So it's just the equivalent of driving here to the valley to shoot a movie.
Sure.
Then the billboards, icing on the cake. Where did the billboards end up being? The favorite billboard road? 25 minutes the other side of Asheville. So now it's the natural production office point with your town one way, the billboards the other. You never had to. They would have probably, if Martin had said, I don't like anything near here, they probably would have had to have spent to put us up in a whole other part of North Carolina, the other part of the movie. And that's what you have to go in assuming until you find it and everyone's happy with it. You have to assume. So it was icing on the cake that we all
talk about a workflow.
We all got to live in Asheville and we didn't have to move. And you make the whole movie, and even her house ended up being on the hill overlooking the billboards. Unbelievable.
To talk about a productive workflow for a film, right? Talk about everything being where it needs to be.
And that comes to my department. If we can pull that off, then that's icing on the cake. It ends up looking great.
Beautiful. Well, we all know it's coming. We all knew it was coming. We all knew this moment. We're going to talk about La La Land. Before I'm wearing my Seb shirt, by the way, just to honor that.
One thing I got to throw in there. We're from La La Land.
Sorry, I'm chatting too much, and I'll try not to talk about anything.
No,
no, that's what we want.
You're perfect. You think people watch the show for us? You're wrong. No. When I saw La La Land for the first time, because Carlos is absolutely obsessed, and we all had to kind of like go.
I really am.
We had to watch it. It was kind of like he broke all of our backs until we did. I was amazed. I come from a more cinematography DP perspective, but I felt like there was just so much love in the locations that were picked and the way that everything was filmed, that even though there were areas where you felt like you could have just filmed everywhere, everything had so much care to it and felt so magical when the actors would kind of walk through the location, or you would have the dance numbers and everything. It just felt
even the Warner Brothers backlot felt right for what it was.
I mean, was that love letter to Hollywood, and I mean, or LA. It really just encapsulated all that. It was one of those things that seeing what locations could do for a film made me appreciate that whole spectrum.
Now to give everybody a little bit of background before you dive into this world for us, Robert. That Robert and I met because of that. Robert and I were both on kind of this. I say both when he actually got to work on this masterpiece on La La Land fan group on social media, and we started kind of seeing people are always constantly every day posting things that they discover about the film, or maybe just that they watched it again, or it's an anniversary or what have you. Yeah. And Robert came on and was like, "Hey, worked on the film, was a location manager. Hey, here's some cool facts. Here's some cool,
That was one pandemic lockdown evening where I'm like, this was fun to kind of join this group and just kind of be, read about it, and maybe get a little trivia that even I don't know or whatever. And then I'm like, cool. I'm just going to go ahead and just like say, hey, everyone, ask me questions. I work.
Yes. And so I messaged Robert after kind of going into that conversation. I messaged Robert.
It's a fun
I said, hey, I'm a big fan. This, la da da. And I was like, hey, we have a production company. I'd love to send you some of our films. And Robert was kind enough to check out the films I sent him and say, give me some feedback and say, hey, you guys did great in these aspects. Maybe these films need a little work here, but you guys have some.
I did do that. I forgot.
Yeah. And then that's kind of how we started talking. And then
John's a good actor. I'll throw that in here.
Oh man, that means a lot. Appreciate it, sir.
I'll throw that. I gotta throw in
trying.
that. I gotta throw in something about him. We could do a whole episode where we talk about your movies. But
hey, that'd be fantastic.
I want to at least say that.
I appreciate
No,
it.
yeah, it's and by the way, in terms of location, Robert, all of the films that we did for that campaign, these short films, we shot in El Paso, in and around the El Paso, Texas, New Mexico area. Yeah.
No, that's great. I mean, you guys are showcasing in your own way that, you know, you got to do it.
So yeah, that's the goal, is to get more bigger productions to the city. Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, you guys even are you writing to where you live too, like coming up with things because you live near something interesting or
exactly
whatever. Look, La La Land had the time to. That's such a big part of locations too. It sucks when they rush trying to pick something because whatever reason, and there was a lot of time to figure it out and really compare places and yeah, it was production designed and shot and lit and acted. Everything did what it needed to do in each place, which is such a thrill when it's all up there on the screen, done the way that it should be done. Like literally every shot of the movie. I mean, it'd be interesting to do that. Like watch it and say, is there any shot where I thought, why did they do it this way? No, I bet every shot is the way that like you think that's how they should have done it.
I mean, we start off with this amazing location for It's Another Day of Sun, and it's closing down freeways right up your alley, right? It's closing down the off ramp, on ramp, and it's a wonder to a certain degree. We have hidden cuts, but it has to be a beautiful location with the LA skyline in the background. And it's not the primary freeway because we all know what a nightmare that is in LA. That either the PCH or the main. So what was that like kicking off from Another Day of Sun?
Well, I mean, it was written as, I mean, Damon put the word Hollywood freeway in there, which we knew it wouldn't be that. There was never a moment where, hey, let's do that. Although Quentin Tarantino managed to pull off a really cool shot in that same part for Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. They cued the period. I remember driving by one day on Vine, you could see them cueing the period cars to go up. And they timed it perfect and got a shot on the Hollywood freeway. And I'm sure they had to VFX out a bunch of stuff, but obviously it would have been hugely different doing 2.5 days like we did. So I had shot a scene for a Jennifer Aniston movie called Cake, which is a good movie.
Terrific picture, terrific character piece.
No, it is. It's another like if people watch it at the right time, it's a great movie about loss and but we shot a scene up there. We shut it down for a few hours when Jennifer Aniston's standing on that same stretch of freeway from Another Day of Sun. Completely opposite scene. She's contemplating suicide, and we're dancing. But it was the same exact spot, and so I'd already gone through it with that. You
knew the logistics at that point.
Knew the logistics, but we had to rehearse for. Damien wanted one other half day to rehearse, but they gave us 2.5 days total to close that section. And I
saw the video for rehearsals. Was that part of your department as well? Because it was in like some parking lot, right? With
that was right outside our production offices. Yeah, they would set up cars and stage it out there and rehearse it out there. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
But then you had to have a day of rehearsal actually up there too. You had to feel the curve of the ramp and how far everything. It had to be timed so perfectly, and they did have 2 days to shoot it, so that helped. The weather was different on both days, which amazingly matches. It matches. I'm not sure if all the shots are from the same day. That's interesting. Maybe we'll get that on a special edition.
Yes.
Yeah.
Or no, maybe they do talk about that on the DVD. I'm not sure, but yeah, no. The weather was different. There was a much more hazy. You're not guaranteed that you're even going to see downtown in the background. I mean, you go up there and you hope that you're going to see what you're wanting to see.
I think that was in the Blu-ray bonus features. I think they discussed how the overcast on one day they had to wait for like 4 hours or something like that to shoot.
That was on the first or second. I visited up there. Of course, I left again. That's another one where I leave my assistant up there for 2 days. He was in the blistering sun on the second. I'd probably have a sunburn if I had stayed up there. But it was blisteringly hot. But of course, that's a set I had to go visit. I had to see the logistics. How do you get up there? Is it going well? But I don't have time to sit and watch a fun dance thing because I'm worried about where we're shooting the next day.
The next day, absolutely.
And as long as the CHPs are closing it and no one's going to get through and crash into anybody, it's going great. Bye, guys.
Right.
Do their thing.
And it sounds like you were the perfect person for La La Land Robert, because you have somebody who's experienced in the LA area, the greater LA area. Yeah. And this was like Delala said, this love letter to LA and Hollywood. And, we get into scenes like the Griffith Park scenes, and the magic hour. It has to do with how the location is being affected by the weather and a certain time of day. But you had to place this location, right? Or was that written in the script?
No, it was written that they're supposed to be coming from the party from below. Right. So they had to line up the cars. They put in the lamps that they're walking past just to give a little sense that you would buy that there are houses right down there, but there aren't houses. That was a completely different location. Is
that the kind of supposed to be the what we know as the Los Feliz neighborhood?
I guess you would say that's what that is. Yeah, you would probably buy that. Yeah, that's interesting. I didn't think about it. The house is actually in Encino where the pool party. Okay, well, not the Somewhere in a Crowd, but the Flock of Seagulls pool party. But they're walking up the hill, and then. We just wanted something magical. My scout, we looked at anything that had a magical view. I remember early on, Damon kind of wanted a view also from the Somewhere in a Crowd house. And we were kind of like, well, you're going to get this beautiful view from the duet dance like 10 minutes later in the movie. You don't necessarily need a beautiful view from the Somewhere in a Crowd house. Which helped open that up to a lot more houses. Because now And a lot. And
I'm sure
pools.
For Mandy, the choreographer, I'm sure for her it opened up a world too to be able to place the choreography.
Oh my gosh, because a lot of pools that we liked with views are the infinity pools, which was not good for. Icing on the cake. I don't think it was written that way, but when you have a house with a guest house that we chose for Somewhere in a Crowd, you could then write to the house and have the guy jump off.
Yes.
And the crane actually goes into the water, and everybody gets to be up there. But he wanted them originally to dance all the way around the pool. Right. But then look what you get in place of that. You get the great diving in and but that opened that up. Like you wouldn't necessarily have even looked at that house if they wanted the view. You're constantly like weighing like what are the most important parts of a scene.
And you were able to talk Damien off that ledge, like you say, right? You had the better view on the duet than on this party scene. That's almost a transition scene to a certain degree.
Yeah,
that was the hardest house to find and shoot. People think the freeway is the most complicated. It is in terms of how many meetings we have with CHP and the city, and how is this going to affect people trying to get to LAX and all this kind of stuff. But once that gets locked in and the CHPs are in place and you own it, you're just filming and you hope nobody looks up from the other freeway and goes, "Why are they dancing up there?" I had already gone through nobody crashing going, "Is that Jennifer Aniston up there?" So I thought we could get away with 50 dancers on cars. Right. But the hardest just in terms of finding it and having it be chosen and work the way it's written, and then also filming it because you're getting all these neighbors on board for 2 nights, lasting that song. And it had to be shot night for night. We looked at tons of houses. And I made the mistake of letting them fall in love with this house in Beverly Hills. Oh no! I'll admit it. But I said, guys, I have no idea if the people are going to sign off on this. But it was really great. It ended up being shot in a Bryan Cranston, James Franco movie.
Is it Why Him?
Thank you. Yes.
Why Him?
And I ended up seeing it, and they shot at night. I was like, "Ugh." But then again, they didn't shoot music playback. But none of the once I knew that 2 neighbors said, "No way am I signing off on this," I said, "Guys, I got to find a different house. Sorry, I know you love it, but this has. We do not want to get involved in something where we're paying every neighbor and having it be so difficult." So things like that can be a letdown.
Now, logistically, Now, logistically, how does that translate into something like Griffith Observatory?
Griffith Observatory was very strict on only shooting on Mondays. So, and we did not want to have to go back and shoot 2 different Mondays. Yeah, that was the debate. Yeah, right. It was all in one Monday. Yeah, we shot it all in one.
Wow. Day. Interior and exterior. Started with the finale shot in the day where they're out
without looking up at the Griffith at the end of the movie.
On the bench, yes.
On the bench, put the bench in the perfect spot. They look up. Then you go and you do the shot of. Now there was a fence all the way around it. They were replacing the lawn, which these are all these things you have to think about. But he really wanted the match cut from Rebel Without a Crew, which they pulled that off. Then go inside. Then do all the things of walking around the pendulum. Is that what you call that? The pendulum.
Yes, the pendulum.
And then walking through other parts. The planetarium itself was on stage.
Right.
It was not the real one. You couldn't shoot the real one anyway, but it was so complicated with the dance that they wouldn't have tried to shoot there anyway.
Right.
That was fine. That was fine. But they let us kind of walk around in there, But yeah, that was all one day. But yeah, you have to always keep thinking of that. Like we got to. Don't try to write another scene here, please.
Right. No, and I kind of want to.
All one day.
I went to we had another kind of LA vacation, my wife and I. Now she's my wife. Then I was actually proposing that week in LA, in Disney rather, in Anaheim. And so we kind of had this kind of Hollywood Disney vacation, and I made my wife go to. We did the Warner Brothers Backlot tour.
Oh, I love it. Oh my God.
At
least you're going to places that you kind of want to go anyway. You're not
right. No. Well, I mean, don't get me wrong. We ended up. Yeah. I made her come and say, "Hey, let's go to the."
You made her go to Santa Clarita to look.
I know. I made her. I said, "Hey,
driving. Okay, big deal. It was her house in Arizona. I don't want to go."
No. It's almost a step further. She wanted to go to the beach one day, so I said, "Fine, but we're going to Hermosa Beach. We're going to go to Hermosa Beach. We're going to go to the Lighthouse Cafe, and we're going to just spend some time there."
That is so funny.
And we talked to the owner there at the Lighthouse, and she was so sweet. She was so sweet, and kind of told us some stories about the.
Well, that's what's so fun. Working on a movie that then people is a payoff to being involved in it too. I love that.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, I got to take my pictures outside the cafe on the Warner Brothers lot where Mia works, and I got to take my pictures at the Lighthouse.
They decided to leave the color there too. Yeah,
they left the color and some of the kind of the seating outside, and it was pretty fantastic. But I say all that to say that even it made an impact, especially from what I understand, in people in LA and Hermosa, because in Hermosa Pier they declared La La Land Day a certain day there. And then they also in the Lighthouse Cafe, they have a whole wall dedicated to La La Land.
Fantastic! Oh my God! Yeah. I haven't visited. Since. Well, I visited the day they did the La La Land Day. The music supervisor and I got up and gave a little dedication thing, and that was fun.
Oh, cool!
But yeah, I haven't been. That was inspired shooting that scene on the pier too. I mean, that was great. That wasn't written that way. So that
it was inspired.
That's just the icing on the cake when you're shooting that scene on the same day you're going to do the Lighthouse Cafe.
Right.
What's the best spot? What's the best spot to have him sing his song after he leaves?
So they almost have to work. The location managers have to work in conjunction, especially with the ADs, right? They say we have this one location for 2 days. Oh my God. Let's take advantage and shoot scenes 5, 7, and 12. On these 2 days.
I'm doing it right now. I'm like, if you want to shoot that scene on this day, and with COVID too, they don't want to make a lot of company moves. They don't want to put everybody in vans and you have to sit far apart. And So I'm doing that right now, where it's just you're making decisions based on where you're going to be that day, even more than ever during COVID.
Gotcha. So I want to talk about kind of as a transition point. For La La Land, you shot at the Warner Brothers Backlot. And it's a terrific backlot, lots of history, lots of films there. I mean, I'm more impartial to the Paramount lot. I just love the Paramount lot. But Warner Brothers lot for La La Land was perfect. And how logistically, some people I've heard on sets have to rent out the lot for certain days, and they close certain roads on the lot, and other situations they're not shooting. They're off season for TV shows, so it's easier to get in there. How was it for La La Land?
Yeah, there's definitely times of year. Well, it's interesting on the show I just did that we wanted to do more backlot stuff, and they were really trying to restrict it to shows that were back shooting now, and their own shows. Like, hey, this show already is based here. They want to use the lot on this day. We gotta give priority to that. and you definitely got to book it well in advance if you think you want a big chunk of time.
Right. How many days did you spend for La La Land in the Backlot?
There was a scene that wasn't in the movie that was shot there. There's a little shout out again for the special.
Okay. Yes, please. I'm gonna scour. Just watch. I'm so obsessed with this. I'm gonna scour interweb for some.
But no, I believe it was probably it was quite a fit there. It was probably 5 days.
5 days on
because we had to move over to the spot where they're walking between the stages.
Yes.
And doing their jazz conversation. That was the cover of the Pink Floyd album "Wish You Were Here." That's the same chord from the cover of that album.
Beautiful, beautiful. And I only ask in transition because I know you did the location management for Feud, Betty and Joan. So the Betty Davis, Joan Crawford story,
which is still not on DVD. Would somebody please explain to me when I can get a copy of that?
I know. I think it's on Hulu if I'm not mistaken. I know FX were the ones to bring it to life. But again, lots of Backlot stuff, lots of Hollywood history. I personally enjoyed it. When we did the Paramount Backlot tour, I remember they talked a lot about that show because it was one of the recent things they had done. And but we get a lot of that sense. Most recently, we got to see it in Mank, right? But in this particular scenario for Feud, what was that experience like to be able to get some more Backlot shots?
Yeah, I mean, it's fun working on something like Feud and La La Land, and to know that you're going to go scout all the backlots. Like I've been to them, but I need new pictures of them. So, on La La Land, we walked around Sony, we walked around Paramount, we walked around Warner Brothers, and Warner Brothers won out, and I can't remember on Feud, probably the same thing, but also recording studios. I've had the pleasure of being able to go scout all the recording studios in LA because I worked on a project that needed, and that's just, this last week I was standing.
Was that for the High Note? Was that for the High Note? Or?
Well, last week I was standing in a recording studio where he told the story of Prince writing Purple Rain over in that corner. Over in that corner. I'm like, the corner you're standing in is where Prince wrote Purple Rain. Like, okay.
Oh my word.
And I'm getting paid to go see this place today.
Wow. So out of everything that you've done, what is the hardest location that you were able to get and felt like, I guess, the most accomplishing?
Oh, wow. Hardest to get.
Or most accomplishing. I mean, that's why I kind of added in those two.
Well, I don't know. Hard is such a hard can mean time consuming, but it doesn't necessarily mean I was hating every moment of it. It was I think from the first time that I read 3 Billboards to the time that we knew we were shooting in Silva, and that's just a long chunk of time. That's that's scouting in all those different states and taking the director there and then going back, and it's that kind of stuff can be time consuming. It doesn't feel like hard work though. It's just part of the process because that's going to take a lot more time than something else.
But like you said, the final result just felt so rewarding, knowing that logistically it made sense for the film, and then just being able to get everybody 40 minutes here, 20 minutes there.
Yeah. No, and I love that so many different places worked out on La La Land. Pretty much everywhere that we wanted. I mean, the whole montage sequence, the love montage. Those were the last little pieces filmed on the movie, and we had a list of places that would look great and say LA and where they could be during this montage, and the list got whittled down from 12 to 7 or whatever it ended up being
in the film.
But that's rewarding to in the movie that way and get all those shots, and but that's just for an eighth of a page too.
An eighth of the page. Yeah. Okay, so sorry, go ahead, Custer.
Well, going off of Michael De La O's question, I wouldn't say what's the biggest mistake you've been in, but what's the biggest lesson you've learned in a close call.
Now you're getting deep.
I know. I'm trying to reach in there, trying to get into your mind.
Biggest lesson.
Yeah, where it was a close call, or you just pulled it off right at the last minute. Or...
Oh wow, no, shoot. Sorry, I don't have these stories handy.
No,
you're good. You're good.
Take a minute to flirt with it.
No, there are interesting ones where you just
because what a stress to be in a big studio.
I know, believe me, this all makes it sound like, hey, you just figure it all out. Hey,
I know.
No.
You just knock on doors and you're like, do you want to help out with a move?
yeah.
Can we shoot in your house today?
That's a sense of accomplishment when you pull off. Well, look, biggest lesson. Well, I mean, look,
a memorable one, I guess.
Memorable lesson. I can't think of one right now. Now I'm all like, now I got every movie in my head at one time.
No lessons too small. If you tell us to pack extra toothpaste, we'll start today.
Well, look, I'll just tell you in terms of being a location manager and a location assistant, what I expect out of them is just wake up every day, make notes of the priorities of the
Priorities
day.
number one for sure.
And if you're a good location manager, you're going to adjust them every day too. Just because yesterday we were like, the designer didn't really like that look of that style house. Now he wants this kind of house. To relay that to your staff the next day, because their brains could still be thinking of the other kind of house.
Exactly.
And like, just
Sure.
And I hate it when two people do the same thing by accident.
Oh,
I really try to
yeah.
have my assistants like working with me because I do these powwows. That's not a good term, right? Powwow.
We understand.
But I say it anyway. Look, I'm against. The Redskins can change their name, but I use the term powwow.
Understand that. Yeah.
No, it's funny. Every time I say the word powwow, I think of that. Like, wait, that's not right. Just say the word. But my assistants love our powwows in the morning because we go over the priorities of the day and they feel confident that they all know what they should be thinking about, because you don't have to be thinking about everything. If I'm assigning the freeway to this assistant, he doesn't need to know about the difference.
Sure.
Yeah, you don't
So
want
they can focus in their area.
And he can do it. He can come and say, how's the observatory going? But I'm like, don't worry about it. It's going great. You can ask about it, but like, it's prioritizing who should be doing what and communicating each morning about who's doing what. So no one accidentally orders the same restroom those are the biggest, I think, and they appreciate that because then they're not getting into little arguments about, wait, we're supposed to do that.
It streamlines their job a whole lot more.
Oh my God. So a good assistant's going to appreciate being organized because it helps keep them organized.
Right.
And there's a long-winded way of saying, that's what makes a successful department. And I would say that's the biggest lesson overall, is knowing how to take good notes and priorities and communicating.
Awesome. I have one.
But that's, yeah.
No, that's amazing advice for the filmmakers listening in. I have one more question for you, Robert, before we transition into our last segment.
I went through my whole just in time.
Show.
Hey, if you want to get some more, no worries.
Look, I've had my iced coffee now.
At the jitter.
Okay, no, go ahead. Sorry,
So no worries. This last question, just kind of before we transition into our final segment. It's been announced that you just did the David O. Russell's new project. David O. Russell does a film every 5 years, and they're fantastic films. They're terrific pictures. He's a great director. And this particular picture we don't know much about it other than the cast, and the cast is star-studded. I mean, amazingly star-studded with this Untitled David O. Russell project, right? For people from Anya Taylor-Joy, who people now know because of Queen's Gambit. And, again, she had done amazing work before that, but now she's more in the mainstream. Margot Robbie's in this picture, Zoe Saldana, Christian Bale, Timothy Olyphant, Robert De Niro, Robbie Malek, John David Washington, Michael Shannon, Mike Myers. I mean, the list really does go on and on in this David O. Russell picture.
If I was a casting director, I'd be really impressive right now.
I know.
I mean, no, and this is a period piece. In addition to everything, it's a period piece.
That is known now from the photos that have been released, and I guess in the description too. Yeah, no, it was ambitious because it's period. It's a period.
It's period piece, yeah. That affects the location scouting, absolutely, right? So what was your experience? If you can talk about anything about your latest project with David O. Russell, what's going on there?
Can't talk too much about it. I mean, you get all those actors because they love reciting his dialogue, and they love
fantastic dialogue. Mm-hmm.
No, I think they all want to be a part of it. I mean, De Niro had already been in Silver Linings, so.
Right.
It made sense that he'd pop in. We were all kind of curious, like, where's he going to pop up? He's going to do something in this movie. Everybody else is in it. But yeah, no, I can't give away anything with that.
No.
Wrapped it last week.
Can you tell us about the logistics of picking locations for period pieces?
Well, yeah, I mean, you definitely want to give yourself more time. You in the age of paint it out, it's gotten easier.
Yeah.
You know, you got to get rid of that parking meter. Yeah, it's important to just immediately start noting the locations that maybe are easier to pull off and be smarter about, like you're doing something like a feud and you're trying to do a scene out on a street. Go ahead and start making notes of the ones that they're likely to pick because they don't have all that stuff.
Yeah,
you got to strip away. You know, you may think they're just going to say they're going to paint it out, but then they might end up saying, maybe we should have picked the other one.
Sure.
Can you bring those
that makes sense.
Can you bring those pictures back of the other one?
All right, folks, it's that time, the last segment of the episode.
Oh no, what do I do now? Do I sing a song? What do I do?
We actually put our
song and dance.
You came off musicals, Robert. We got to see your skills on the. No, I'm kidding.
All right, last segment is called the Good Word of the Day with Michael DeLo.
So we got a word of the day segment. This is just to expand everybody's vocabulary as communicators, as location managers and assistants. This is just a little fun segment we'd like to add in where I give you the word of the day and you tell me if you know what it means and the definition. It's fun.
No pressure.
People like playing along. So your word, Robert, is promulgate. Promulgate.
Oh, I've heard that. Can you use it in a sentence, please?
I know. I right when you said promulgate, I thought of profligate. Is that a word? Which is weird. Like all of a sudden, I thought like he didn't just say it. He said
we'll coin it if it isn't, Robert.
Okay.
We'll coin it if
promulgate is when you can't gain access through the door at your prom because you're at detention. And you can't go through the door.
You're breakfast clubbed.
You're breakfast clubbed. Oh man, we're promulgated.
Yeah, we're promulgated.
How's that?
I love it.
Answer?
I love it.
As close as that was, I'm going to say no dice on this one. So promulgate is to promote or make something widely known. Now,
I have heard that. Oh my God.
Yeah. Yes. So because of your location scouting and your success and ability to really provide these amazing locations, I feel like you've really promulgated the beauty of places. No, you really have. Like, I mean, because of you, there's people who go and buy maps of La La Land locations, not pointing fingers, and have to travel to every single one. So yes, I will definitally use it.
And I joke with my wife that you might see me on a tour bus when I retire, like pointing them out to people.
I picked that location.
Awesome. I'll see you in 20 years. There's where we shot the.
Awesome. I wonder if the location manager for Under the Silver Lake feels the same way. You know.
They had some pretty cool LA locations in that.
They did, but on a much darker scale.
And before La La Land, 500 Days of Summer was the romantic comedy that everybody talked about for LA, which still, so it's kind of took the
But you've done an amazing job, Robert. I mean, we all agree. Yeah. Thank you for giving us that insight. Thank you for telling these amazing stories of the sets you've been on. And we know that you love this career, you love this choice. You wake up every day with a smile on your face because you get to do what you love. And even the headaches and the trials that come with it, that's what our storytellers have to know is that do it for the right reasons. Do it because you love cinema and you love telling stories. And we could definitely see that in you to tell stories through location. So thank you for that.
And it's a choice of career too, where you can be creative compared. And that's kind of why I thought I'd continue doing it. I wanted to be a screenwriter like everybody else. But it's creative. I knew when you're out there early on making decisions that are on the screen, and sometimes if you do a movie that doesn't shoot on stage one day, you're like they're right there with the designer. I mean, you're deciding creative looks that you're sitting in a theater looking at as much as anybody. And I love that it's creative, and I think it's a good way to if people find it hard to be creative in other parts of the business that aren't quite working out. I mean, it's an interesting way to still feel that satisfaction that you're a creative part of it. You know?
Yeah, you worked on this picture.
Yeah, I'm not sitting in an office. I'm out and about, and that's why I still like it. Every day's different because I'm out and about. I'm not sitting in an office.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It keeps you active. Absolutely. I mean, we thank you, Robert, and we look forward to working on a film with you. That hopefully you could be the location manager for one of our films.
Oh my gosh! Well, if I'm in El Paso, I'll be looking you guys up.
Yeah.
Please do.
Shoot me a message. You have a fellow crew here in El Paso in the New Mexico area for anything you need. So rest assured, we're here. We had the amazing Robert Foulkes on today's TowerCast episode. He gave us a lot of cool insight on being a location manager and location assistant and how you can be a storyteller to do that medium. We thank you, Robert. And thank you, everybody, for listening in. Please make sure to share the podcast. Keep spreading the word out. We've been getting some amazing results and interaction with everybody on social media. So thank you guys for that.
Thank you.
Make sure to check out Robert's films and the thing he's a part of, or the new David O. Russell project, whenever that drops, is going to be fantastic, as well as the shows that Robert works on. Make sure to keep following him on social media, and I'm sure he'll post updates and let people know what's going on with that. So
Can I have the
thank
last
you.
word?
Absolutely.
Keep on promulgating.
Keep on promulgating.
I love the
Love it.
slow kind of pen.
We're just yeah.
That's awesome.
Guys,
Awesome. Thank you guys for
this was a lot of fun. Thanks.
Thank
awesome.
you.
Thank you guys for tuning in to the TowerCast podcast. Keep making your films. We love you. We support you guys with everything you do. And we'll see you next time.
Love you
Thank you,
guys.
everybody.